Welcome to the One Hand at a Time podcast. I'm your host, Chris Welton. And I got to tell you, today I've been looking at this calendar for as long as we've had this thing booked. I'm so excited about today and the guest I have on. Those of you in the mortgage space and just any sales space, you're going to want to get a notebook out and listen. But this guy had a lot to do with molding the person I am today in the mortgage and the coaching space. Todd Duncan, welcome to the show.
Chris, my man, so good to be here and so good to be with your audience. I look forward to our time together, brother.
Oh, without a doubt. What I want to start is this, is my first ever knowing who Todd Duncan was 2006. It was probably 115 degrees and we were at Sales Mastery in Palm Springs, California. I had been in the mortgage business for about 10 minutes that time. And my best friend, who'd been in the mortgage business for a while, says, you got to go to this event. So I got out my Amex and just hoped I could figure out a way to pay for it because I just left my old job, and I hopped on a plane. I flew out there and I just started taking notes. And that was the first event I'd ever been to in my life. I mean, like, I'd never been to any conferences or anything like that. And I just started listening, and I listened to you and the stories, and they were so relatable, and the information you were delivering. I'm writing pages of notes. And then the people that came on stage that impacted me, and, that was like the start of my mortgage career. And I immediately went from there, and I called Building Champions and said, I want Bill Hart to be my coach. And then Bill Hart became my coach, right? So Bill was my first ever coach. And it really things just started to take off. Now, I did buy a lot of stuff while I was there on that Amex that I wasn't sure how I was going to cover, but I just did it, and I felt like I needed to learn and get after it. And the next 8 months, I closed 20 million in business, all off of financial advisors, not one realtor relationship, all off financial advisors, right? And that's 2006. So that's where it started with me. And that was the first I knew who Todd Duncan was. And then I started reading the books, right? And getting more and more in tune with you. But that's where it became, that was my first impression, Todd.
Well, you know what's so exciting about the fact that our universe lined up in that moment with that Amex in that year is the fact that you did something that every successful person that I've ever had a chance to interact with, and believe me, Chris, it's been millions of people. You did something that so many don't do. It's rare to watch this. You were brave. And everything great in my life that has ever occurred required bravery. And bravery to attend and to be vulnerable, bravery to look in the mirror and realize that you don't have it all figured out. Bravery to say, you know what, I have no idea how I'm going to pay this back, but I'm going to trust that process. And bravery and courage are the two biggest things that every person in the world needs to have a bigger life. And if you don't take risks, you actually create negative risks. So hats off to you. You and I were aligned to collide in that moment in time, and you get 100% of the praise for implementing and building the career that you built. And people tell me all the time, thanks for changing my life. And I want to look at them. I want to just kind of gently grab their shoulders and look them in the eyes and say, listen, I didn't change your life. You did. All the praise goes to you. I just got the honor to be in the way as you were pursuing something better for yourself. And that's why this is so beautiful, because I didn't change your life. You did. And so thanks. It was a good start. And here we are today, right? What is this?
Yeah. Here we are 20 plus years later. And, one of the things I wanted to make sure we talked about in the beginning, so I don't forget, is would you please write an updated version to Time Traps could you do that for us?
Yeah, I could. In fact, I'm working on 2 books right now, and one of them is that.
Yes. Yeah. I told my buddy Jason earlier how we talked about, I'm going to ask him about Time Traps. He's like, yeah, we got to do that. So Todd, I wrote a book called One Jordan, where I send one Jordan shoe to people in a handwritten note. And it says, if you want the other shoe, give me a call. Now, I used to do the same thing with the Time Traps book. And I had a little handwritten note we'd put in there with a $20 bill. And I'd send it to builders and whoever. And it would say, here's the $20 cost for your time to read this letter. I'm going to call you at 3:00 on Thursday. And this is a book that just really helped me get my calendar, my time together. And I can't tell you the number of high-end builders and realtors and financial advisors I got in front of because I used your book to get in the door.
It's interesting. The old days, and I say that lovingly because when I began, it was 1980 and interest rates were the worst they've ever been, and everybody thought the sky was falling. And one of the great gifts my grandmother gave me was the gift of perspective and positivity, that if the world is thinking everything's going to hell in a handbasket, and you kind of move through town bringing ideas of hope and the fact that it doesn't really matter what the market's doing, it matters how good you are in whatever market you're in. She taught me that whole positivity thought. And the interesting thing was that she reminded me that giving always works better than taking. And so what I started doing, and this is, I don't even think we had a fax machine yet, Chris. And so everything had to be hand delivered. But I started reading real estate books. I started going to real estate conferences, and I started taking ideas and giving them to real estate agents. And when faxing came along, then I would fax them the idea for the week or the idea for the day if they were like a top-notch client that I was going after. And everybody else was begging. Everybody else, had commission breath. Everybody else was going in and, asking dumb questions like, are you working with any buyers? What do you expect an agent to say? Like, no, I'm basically unsuccessful. Thanks for asking. Or maybe I'm not working with any right now. Do you have any to refer to me? Or this, that, or the other thing. And then one day I watched 3 loan officers come in and take out of the cubby holes all the information that had piled up for the week and throw it in the trash and put their new whatever, no value on thinly sliced pieces of tree, and expect that to work. And so what I found that my whole psychology of making calls changed when I went from thinking about getting to being committed to give. And it was one of the greatest decisions I have ever made, because those same relationships took care of me for 12 years as a loan officer. I funded just under 6,000 loans, and took care of me for the next 30 years as I started the Duncan Group and taught people all over the world in mortgage to start and real estate, and then any sales platform. The idea of stop trying to get, give and you will receive. And it's just the psychology. It's like, I'm so excited about what I have to offer. I'm going to be really picky and choosy about who I offer it to. And that changed everything. And so then that story morphed into the books, right? So then it was like, why don't start doing books? And so when I wrote The Power to Be Your Best, I launched that at Mastery and sold, 700 cases, because the same thing, it was true. I'll be here for 5 days. I'll autograph every book you buy, take them and give them to your realtors and say, I thought you'd enjoy this book. And so now, you bringing up time traps, I'm excited to rethink that book. The fact that it starts with the fax machine analogy, it probably needs to be updated, even though it still makes the point.
It does, for sure. I cannot wait. I will be so excited to grab a hold of that and share it with everybody I can. You're so right. When it comes to value, I'll give you an example. So I work with an IMB out of Sacramento, one of their divisions, and I've been working with them for a couple of years. And I coach the president of the division, and then there's some other LOs inside, but I do extra things for them. I got certified in exactly what to say by Phil Jones, and I'm teaching all their new people scripts and just different things, no charge. I just do this as something I give back to them. And I do that on a monthly basis. And I don't ask for anything else. This is what I want to bring value to. Well, the president of APM, one of the biggest IBMs, which owns that division, called me yesterday, and I just got off a call with him, and he wants to know how I can do more business with APM. So I'm a giver anyways. Like, I love to give, right? That's one of the things I enjoy doing, but it definitely will pay off if you do it the right way.
Well, and I think the mindset that people have to have, people ask me, like, do you remember some of the key decisions you made as a brand new loan officer? And when it came to prospecting, one of the decisions that I made was that it was never a matter of if, it was only a matter of when. And when would be determined not by how many times I followed up or not by how many times I made calls to see if we could move to the next level. It was actually the complete opposite. It was by not doing that and letting value take over. And so my top real estate agent, if you can imagine this, Chris, in 1983, gave me $26 million in loans in 1983.
Wow.
One realtor. That's more loans than most loan officers in America do in a year with 30 realtors.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting is when I approached her, she already had a lender. And I had already learned what to do when that moment arose. You know, Zig Ziglar would always say that success preparation meets opportunity. And so when Debbie said to me, I mean, I love our conversation right now, but to be straight up with you, you know, I work with Larry over at Mark One Mortgage, and we've been together for 7 years. I don't see myself breaking up with him right now. And I looked at her and I said, that's completely okay. At least we got to know each other today. At least you kind of see who I am. And hey, I have an idea. Would it be okay if I just stayed in touch with you? And if for some reason, hopefully never, but if for some reason Larry messes up, you know me, and will you work for that? And she said, sure. So in 18 months, I delivered to her 81 or 82 ideas on how to sell more real estate.
Oh, wow.
And so the day that her LO blew it on a pricing lock and 3 escrows collapsed, she called me and said, Todd, starting today, you're my lender. And Chris, I got 12 loans the first week from one realtor. It took 18 months to earn her trust.
Mm-hmm.
I did it by not asking once for more business. Yeah. I did it by letting my value open the door to a high trust relationship. And high trust has been the mantra for my entire career.
What made you stay so consistent with that? Because 18 months is a long time.
Well, because my filter through which I ran my question was, it's never a matter of if, it's only a matter of when, and the when is determined by the amount of value. And so when I started the Duncan Group in 1990 and then incorporated it in its own in 1994, one of the first banks that I wanted to land, I had the top 20 banks in America that I wanted to land, was Barnett Bank.
I know Barnett Bank. Sure. Yeah. I'm a Floridian, so I know Barnett Bank.
There you go. So I call and I speak to a gal named Ginger, and Ginger's on the training team, and I'd send her a FedEx package with what I was training on and so on. And she said to me on the phone, she said, you know, I really love what you sent me, but I gotta be straight up with you. We do not vendor base our sales training. And, you know, most people making a sales call to try to get in would kind of pucker and go, oh, shoot, man, I missed out on this one. And I said to her, that's okay. How about we continue to get to know each other? Do you see my script? How about you continue to get to know each other? And would you be okay if every 3 months I sent you 500 CVs and 500 lesson plans for your loan officers, just as a value add, no charge, no strings attached? She goes, you would do that? Why? And I go, because if your policy ever changes, I want the first guy you call to be me. Mm-hmm. And she goes, great. So we started, that was our start. And 3.5 years later, I had delivered every 3 months a new 500 CV package with new lessons and the lesson plans. She calls me one day and she goes, Todd, it's Ginger. I have good news. And I go, what? And she goes, Mickey retired. And Mickey was head of training. He's the one that set that policy. And I got promoted and I took over Mickey's job. And the first policy I'm going to change is we're going to vendor base our sales training to you. Wow. And I got a $900,000 contract for 3.5 years of following up every 90 days with value.
Yeah.
And so I think most salespeople do not put them in the position, and I call it that, I call it positioning, where if something ever changes, the first person you'll think about is me. That's called investing in future relationships. And you've got to understand that this is the narrow path, because this is hard to do. It takes a little bit of faith. Putting all your eggs in one basket and, you know, doing that whole kind of thing is really smart as long as you keep your eye on the basket. But for me, it was like, if I want the best at some point in the future, I have to give them the best. And so the answer to the question is, what kept me going? I knew the formula worked. Some were shorter, a couple months, some were longer, a couple years. But at the end of the day, once I have the relationship, I have them for life. And so go back to Barnett and Ginger, we did business for 24 years.
Wow.
And she went from there to Nations Bank, to Bank of America, to PNC, and then to Chase. And I got to follow her everywhere she went. So let's just make it really clear here too, as we talk about this. Most people cannot see them doing what I do and what I did. And the reason why they can't see it is because there's no immediate monetary payoff. But there is a decision that I made, and a decision that even today, everybody watching this has to make. What is your focus? Relationships or transactions?
Yeah.
It's that simple. And if you choose transactions, you'll make a living. And if you choose relationships, you'll make a fortune. Yes. And that was my methodology. And I have people today, Chris, that like tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow at 4:00, I'm going to call an Australian in Sydney. It is the following morning there in Sydney, and it's his birthday. And this guy's name is John Simon. And I helped John build the biggest mortgage brokerage in Australia. And this will be the 32nd year I've called him to wish him a happy birthday.
Wow.
And last year he gave me a $400,000 contract with a referral.
Yeah.
Relationships, they matter.
Yeah. And you know what? When I look at that, I go, I love the fact we're sharing these things on here, but 99% of the people on here, or maybe even a higher percentage, won't do it. Won't do it. They want the instant gratification. They want it to pay off right now. They don't want to follow up the way they should. I'm a really like follow up is one of my strengths. Like I came from the automotive industry, right? So follow up, like I was never afraid of the phone, because that's just, I was trained on the phone when I was super young in the car business. But the follow up, the fortunes are made in the follow up.
It's so interesting to understand. There's a couple things in your question that I want to address, so don't let me forget them. One is, don't let me forget a story about Mercedes-Benz.
Okay.
And then I'm going to start with why. Why do people not understand that building a business requires grit? You know, there's no such thing as, for most people that are walking the planet, a silver spoon where your mom and dad hand you a business and you get to take it over, right? And in the event that happens, great. Don't squander it. Build it bigger. And I have a friend that his name is Barry McGuire, and he owns a McGuire Car Wax company. He's the third son in the generation of his family to carry this torch for this company, and it is 27 times bigger today than it's ever been, because he got it from his father when his father died, and he took over and built it. And when you have an obligation to provide a service to people and you want to build a business around it, there is no pathway to consistent cash flow. There's no pathway to financial freedom. There's no pathway to total peace of mind without hard work. And, you know, Denzel Washington said in a video I saw recently, he said, hard work works. And so the people that are not working hard, which could lead to even working hard and then working smart and working smarter than working harder, the people don't understand what the payoff is. And the reason why I started the Duncan Group is not because I got tired of mortgages. I had a bigger calling to help the rest of the mortgage world figure out how to succeed. And in any audience, Chris, there's the 10% that are going to go do something immediately. There's 20% that are probably going to do something in the next week. There's some people that are going to put their notebook back on their desk and maybe not revisit it for a month. And all I know about success is that you have this little narrow opportunity, this window of opportunity that Jim Rohn calls the law of diminishing intent. And he says, whenever you learn something that you think can change your life, you have about 72 hours to implement it. And if you don't, there's about a 95% chance you'll never touch it again. And so there's people that want it and there's people that don't. And I have not been able to figure out the brain science behind it. But I have told people the better you get at business, the better business gets for you, which makes it easier. And so I really worked hard on scripts and dialogues. I really worked hard on how to create trust in a minute or two or less. I really worked hard on clients for life. I worked very hard on bringing economic value back to my relationships with builders and realtors and financial planners in the form of new clients. I operationalized everything so that the consumer experience was plug them in and they're going to go through it and they're going to come out and they're going to go yay. And then I mastered a referral universe. I mastered taking a Chris that might have this profession and might know 200 people that are in his same circle of influence. And I did a deal with Chris to help Chris empower his friends and his circle of influence to do business with me. And that to me would probably be the biggest thing that people don't realize today is they still are one and done. There's only 4% of loan officers in America that follow up with their borrowers and do a review every year. 4%.
Yeah, I know. And I coach some big producers that I yell at every day, every week about it.
Big producers most of them are horrible at time traps, and they're horrible at delegating. They're horrible at building teams, and they work really, really, really hard. But I like the idea of being so efficient with your time that all you're focused on is watching your hourly rate go up instead of the number of hours you work go up.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to, there's not one person watching this, Chris, that got a plaque last month for the hardest worker.
No.
Or you don't get rewards like that. And what's at risk is the rest of your life. If you don't tame the business, then you put the balance of your life in jeopardy, which I've always drawn a line in the sand that you gotta be really good off the job to be better on the job.
Can I get a coaching advice from you on a client real quick while we're on here? Can we do that?
Sure.
So I have a client who's done really well in his career, been in the business a long time, was in the builder space a long time. And in the last couple years have just been really, really challenging for him. I've been coaching him for about a year and a half. Great guy, great father, just great individual. But we can't seem to get the excitement back in him to do the tasks, like to get back to work. And he knows that. We'll talk about it. He's like, yeah, I can't get myself to do the things that made me successful before. And you're the godfather of the mortgage business and coaching. I'm hoping that you can help me come up with a solution for this guy.
So a couple of things come to mind fairly immediately. Right before I joined you, I was on with the CEO of a global company called FinFit. And I've done 2 speeches for him because he's a friend and I've waived my fee. And I've reached out to him because one of his passions is writing a book. And I said to him, we made a deal. So this was just maybe 3 weeks ago. 3 months ago, we made a deal that he would give me an update every Friday on his book progress. Mm-hmm. And that if he did that, then I would follow up with it and help him with his book. And so I got the first one, and then he missed the second one. I got the third one, and then he missed the next 2. So I got him back on the phone, and I said, here's the deal. Okay, unless I start getting them every single week consistently, okay, I will never waive my fee again. And next time you hire me, it'll be $65,000.
Yeah.
And he said, okay. And he is now, I think we're week 11 right now. Mm-hmm. And consistently I get an update every Friday. So accountability is a piece of it. But that piece of accountability was more of a takeaway than it was kind of an empowerment, right? So back to your client, he knows what to do, but he's not doing it. A lot of people lose their way when they either achieve some level of success, maybe a little bit of boredom, maybe a little bit of self-doubt and fear that they're getting older and they may not be able to do it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons why people would not find the magic, right? And so Um, I had a moment in my career where I had bought a large company. It was not working out the right way. This is 20 years ago. Wasn't working out the right way. I put millions of dollars into it. My wife was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Everything came plummeting down. Right. My wife died. I lost 90% of my net worth. When I taught Building Champions and Daniel how to teach life planning, the one thing that was never part of my life plan is being a single dad.
Yeah.
And I had a 13-year-old and 11-year-old that were, they were motherless. And it was one of the hardest seasons of my life. And I remember one day I was in our home and I was looking at this beautiful picture of my wife who was now gone. I was crying, and my son came up to me, John, he was 13, and he came up to me and he said, Dad, I know it hurts. I miss her every moment. But you've got to do what you teach people to do. And I'm looking at my 13-year-old son, and I'm 52 years old, and I'm going, what is that, John? And he goes, you got to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that would get somebody to keep going, right? In the midst of like the hardest, most painful season of their life. And I did an interview with Darren Hardy at Success Magazine. And when I began to unpack this, I'm in my 50s. I've had a great run. My son is telling me I got to do what I teach others to do, and that is to keep going. And what ended up happening is I looked at that moment in time, and the only thing that I could identify with is I hadn't lost the passion or the skill. I'd lost a lot of money. I'd lost my bride of 25 years. I would learn 2 years later that I lost both of my sons to drugs and alcohol. And we've been battling that fight for probably 12 years before they both had near death experiences, and now have been sober for 4 years each. Mm-hmm. But I had the skill and I had the why. I've been teaching, purpose since The Power to Be Your Best in 2000. And my purpose has always been to make a transformational difference in people's lives. So what was the best way back? The best way back was to start doing that again and start doing it at scale. And, it's like when I started this off with you, I said, congratulations, because you demonstrated courage and bravery. I have friends right now that are in their 70s and still so excited about waking up every day and doing business. I'm in my 60s and I wake up every day more excited than I've ever been, and embracing technology and not running from it and doing all of that. And so back to your friend, I would say, so why would you, and what is in it for you to recalibrate your passion and try for 30 days what you haven't tried for the last 3 years or 30 months. Yeah. And let's see how you feel if we can make an impact with you kind of regearing and having faith and using your 30 years experience or 20 years experience, whatever it is, and do what you've done your whole life, which is to help people win in real estate. And here's the payoff, and then you sharpen his purpose. Send him encouraging messages every other day. I love positivity bolts, just doses of positivity. And the bottom line is that the longer people don't do what they know they should do, the more fear gets in the way of doing anything. And, I told somebody the other day, I said, there's a definition for fear that's really inspiring. And he goes, what do you mean? Fear? There's nothing inspiring about fear. And I said, well, I disagree. I mean, there's two things inspiring about fear. One is if you don't have it, that's inspiring.
Yeah.
And he looked at me kind of like cockeyed. But I said, what if your definition of fear simply stood for feeling excited and ready? Who cares how old somebody is? I mean, if you have passion and you have health and you have a skill and you have joy, it's like Zig Ziglar. He said to an audience, he says, people ask me all the time, when am I going to retire? And he said, I'm never going to retire. I am going to refire, and I'm not giving up until I'm taken up. And it was just like, okay, so there's a guy that's got passion for what he does, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to do speeches. I don't have to fly around and do any of that, but that's a big chunk of what fulfills me, a big chunk of what happens to me every day. I mean, I can't tell you, Chris, how many times a day I get emails or letters or gifts. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Right? Just up overflows with humility and just honor that I get to play this role. And so why would I rob somebody of a chance to hang out with me? And so that's that piece of it.
That's so good, Todd. I mean, like I look at just the brief conversation we had on here, and then what my best friend said when we texted earlier about you, and I'm like, man, I did a TED talk on this thing called the Adversity Backpack, and it's this backpack that everybody has, right? We didn't ask for it, but all the bad stuff that happened to us is stuck in there, and it weighs us down, and it keeps us from making decisions and causes us to pause. And but when I teach it, I talk about receipts. Proof of the good things, put the good things in there. And all I can think about right now, I'm seeing you with your backpack on, and it's like the receipts are just flowing over the top, man. Like you got, yes, you have had horrible things happen and this happened. And but man, the receipts that you have, Todd, on the lives you've touched and the way you're still doing it today, man, that's just remarkable. I mean, just
isn't it what I would hope. Isn't it what everybody wants at some point? I mean, it's not early on. There was a little bit of validation, because it's a little bit hairy to go from being, the top guy in your company and having trained other loan officers as you built your loan business and whatnot. And in that microcosm, it's easy to feel lucky and energized by that. And I remember, like 4 years into my career, when one of the loan officers came up and said to me, he goes, dude, this stuff works. And it was like, right. That was a receipt, because no doubt, I mean, I have not been able to speak for 30 years and 6 continents and deliver over 6,000 presentations without something working. Right.
Yeah.
But then it was like my title partner asked me to speak to 400 realtors. And I had a line of like 40 realtors that stood after my speech, and I was still doing loans, and they wanted to do business with me. And it was like, wow, I can't handle any of this added business. And so when I started the company and sold my mortgage brand to my team, it was all about making a transformational impact. And there's no fear. I mean, I have a gift of speaking, so I'm not afraid of being on stage. I love storytelling. I love telling my own stories of wins and losses and other people. I've coached, have over 100,000 hours of coaching, and 250,000 hours since I started the Duncan Group of, practicing the art of what I do for a living. And so all that is really, really great, but there's nothing better in the world when you get a text or an email or a card, thank you. I taped one to I have an inspiration cabinet where I get my coffee in the morning, but I have this whole inside is taped up with inspiration. And I taped that up yesterday. And the gentleman said, somewhere a couple of decades ago or more, God decided to make you. And I just want you to know that decision by him was the greatest gift I ever got.
Wow. That's so good.
Yeah. So you have all this kind of stuff that just is a blessing. But back to the Mercedes story.
Yeah, let's go.
So when you think about a business, right? I was just having a conversation before this with a guy, and we were talking about how to value his business. And there was 3 levers that would increase the valuation of his business that he wanted to attract an investor. And I said to him straight up, I said, the higher number of policies that you sell based on referrals, the more value your company will have. And he goes, well, tell me about that. And I go, well, you could have 1,000 applications from 1,000 people, or you could have 1,000 applications from 100 people that know 10 people. Mm-hmm. And I said, the key is to make sure that He's got 700 people in the field selling insurance. And I said, the key is to have your team know that the experience they create for this customer, if at the end of that experience, the customer's thrilled and happy and you've got a feedback loop there, about 99% of salespeople don't use that happy moment to engage referability, right? Mm-hmm. And so I said, what if we just taught everybody over the next 3 months, got the whole field on the phone and with one objective. By day 91, you've achieved a degree in referral mastery.
Yeah.
What would happen? So I purchased 22 Mercedes-Benz cars from this guy at Fletcher Jones Motor Cars. His name is Thomas Carnevale. He worked in Newport Beach, California.
Yeah, I was going to say the one in Newport Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm from Huntington Beach originally.
There you go.
That's why.
There you go.
Yeah. So I know exactly where it's located at. I know I can see it right now. Yeah.
But every Mercedes I bought, I would get at the 1-year anniversary a picture of what my make and model was going to look like 2 years later. And so he kept just feeding me and then I was in La Jolla, California, which is an hour and a half south of Newport Beach. And every time I bought the new car, he'd bring it down. He'd pick up the old one. He'd take it back and do the trade. But he never stopped painting a picture for me of what next looked like.
Wow.
And I think that if you as a loan professional simply called every one of the borrowers that you've had the honor and privilege of serving to get them in their home, and once a year ask them 6 questions, you'd be blown away by how much value you'd not only be able to receive yourself in terms of future business, but in many cases calling the realtor or the builder that did the deal the first time and letting them know that their client that they refer to you is going to buy up because they're pregnant with triplets, that kind of thing. But it's really powerful when you start to realize that I can either pound nails with my forehead and look for loans every single day, or I could create a sales force of 500 borrowers that are out selling me every day. And the latter is what most don't do. And the reason I could retire from loans in 12 years is that's what I did.
Yeah.
75, 80% of the business was repeat and or referral, period.
Yeah, that's the key. When I was selling cars for a living, most of my clients, and it was between 70 and 80% was repeat and referral. I didn't have to go on the lot and take clients.
Right.
People would pull in and they would just ask for Chris, right? Like that's just how it worked,
Yeah.
And it's because we took care of them. And I used to have I call it the success manual on my desk, and it was an old school photo album. And I would take pictures of everyone that bought a car with Polaroid. And it was in there. So while they're waiting to go in the finance office or waiting to get their trade appraised, I sit on the desk and they start going through there. They're like, oh, I know him. I know her. You know what I mean? And then you have instant credibility and they're like, okay, well, I used to have clients tell me, I feel guilty when I'm at a stoplight and there's a car dealership that's not yours and I look at their inventory.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's the way of the warrior, right? Create as much value as you can and hang on to clients for their life.
Agreed. So I want to get into what you're doing right now. But I want to know what Todd's doing right now. And I think you got something exciting to talk about here at the end of this call. And I want to make sure that everybody knows what Todd Duncan's doing. And if you're new in the industry and you're not as dialed in with who Todd Duncan is as I am and the other guys, you need to listen to this and get dialed in. Like I'm just telling you, it's the stuff he teaches is timeless. The way he adapts to markets, the stuff he just talked about today works in any market. It doesn't matter. Like it just doesn't matter. And you can't start making excuses for the market, this market, that. Like I sold mortgages in 2007, 8, and 9. Right. So I don't care what you're doing today. Like do the work. Right. But what are you working on right now, Todd? That's exciting.
So life gives us gifts if we're open to the gift. And so when COVID hit, Sales Mastery was going to hit, I think its 25th year anniversary. We were going to hold it in San Diego at the Marriott on the marina down there. And COVID hit and we had no idea. I don't think the world had an idea on whether or not a live event would be able to be taking place that year. And so I looked at my team and I said, well, what's the wise thing to do? And this is that question I just gave your audience, Chris, what's the wise thing to do? What's the wise thing to do? And when you use wisdom to filter decisions, you end up not making as many mistakes. So anyway, I said to the team, what do you think we should do? And they said, I don't think we should plan on holding the event live. I think we should call the Marriott and see if we can get out of the contract. And I think we should live stream. And I said, I agree. I think we should live stream. I don't know if the Marriott will let us out of the contract. And sure enough, they would not until this was declared an act of God. And so we had to really be faithful in this, because every single month that COVID went on, as we were planning for the live stream, we were no sooner or closer to being released from the contract that I'd signed at the Marriott, which basically put me personally liable for $750,000 in money. And so we decided to live stream, and about 60 days out, the Marriott released us from the contract, which felt really, really good. But all I did was, instead of flying the speakers into the city where the hotel was, I flew them into the city where the studio was. And we used a Netflix recording studio that had 5 different digital bays. And so we had this variety of different things that we could do with different people. And we still had 30 speakers over 3.5 days. But here was the gift. My CTO came up to me the second day and he goes, Todd, you got to answer a question for me. And I don't think you have any clue, but how many devices are connected to the event right now? And, Mastery would usually have 2,500, bad years, maybe 2,000, big years, like 4,000. And I said 10,000, and he goes, nope, more. And I go 15, and he goes, nope, more. To save you and your listeners time, we had 44,000 devices connected to the event, and 13 countries.
Wow.
I didn't know that there was mortgage brokers in Istanbul, Turkey.
Yeah, me either.
All over the world, right? And so I said, as I heard that number, I said, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to fix the moral dilemma I've always had. My moral dilemma, Chris, has always been, I love it when you say you enjoyed the event. I would love it even more if I knew what you did with it after you left. Right? Because everybody's all hyped and everything, which is part of action, but it doesn't guarantee that anything's going to get done. So what I said to my team after the event was over, it was a glowing success. I said, I'm going to create the largest digital video library on performance in the world. I don't know with whom. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I don't know any of that. And I had made that decision that I am going to convert all of our learning and coaching to digital. And so I reached out to a couple people I knew, and one of the gals that's a good friend of mine, Sue Woodard.
I know Sue. Sure.
Yeah. Connected me with Alex Kadishian, who was the brainchild behind Sales Boomerang. He and I have been building Fuel now since April of 2022. I had a coaching company with 30 coaches, and I shut that coaching company down about 2 years ago because I saw where coaching was going to go, and it's going to go digital. And so we invented a technology called ELM, which is an expert learning model. If I showed you a spreadsheet right now, I have 17,000 hours of material in Todd Duncan's AI. And I have 45 coaches that have done the same thing, all their books, all their audio, everything into their closed titanium loop AI.
Nice.
So now what can happen is you can talk to me anytime, anywhere, on any device for anything other than what I'm good at, right? So if you ask me to do a contract, for this, I'm going to tell you I'm not an attorney. If you ask me, what's your crypto investment strategy, I'm not going to give it to you because I'm not licensed or legally allowed to do that. It's got that closed loop to it. But last month, 17,000 minutes from just me coaching people all over the world, speaking 40 languages fluently. That's what's got me excited right now.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like, would you pay? I wanted to democratize it because I didn't want to make coaching inaccessible. And the new models are, by the way, I love live coaching. I'm a live coach. I've got different executives that I coach. Yeah. I've got a couple LOs that I coach. I love that. But I don't want people to wait 2 weeks to get an answer to their next next question when there's 2 weeks of opportunity in the midst. And so you can come in and role play with me. We use a model called escalating complexities, like set an appointment with a realtor. Okay, how comfortable are you? I'm a 3. Where would you like to start? Easy, medium, or hard? And I start easy. And we just role play this until like a half an hour later, I understand how to do it. And I, Todd, digitally sign you off. And then you go make sales calls.
Wow.
So now it's like, we had a guy the other day that was watching an approach dialogue with me in the parking lot before he had to make a business call on the head. He ran a practice of 20 financial advisors. So he's in the parking lot going through stuff on this just to get his dialed in. 2 hours later, he texts Fuel and he got the business. And it was just like, wow, how cool is this? That I get to, and so I have brought a technology solution with AI that's closed loop, so it doesn't have hallucinations or anything like that. Like if you came to me today and you said, I said, hey, Chris, it's Todd. How can I help you today? Chris is going to say, well, we talked yesterday, and I just want a little bit more input on that. And then I'm going to come back and say, well, yesterday we had you score at a 6. And I think you told me yesterday that you wanted to go to a 9. Are you ready to go through that experience today? And so it's got memory built into it too, right? Yeah. So that's what I'm really excited about. And then I'm excited about taking, I have a new book that's coming out called Fall in Love with Your Life. And I'm rebranding myself to help people build a bigger life. And we do that in business, and we do it through all those things that you've learned from building champions and coaching, but very excited about that. So this is going to be a very unique group. The goal that I have is to have 10,000 coaching clients on my AI, which, by the way, I bought Todd.ai. So I'm the only guy in the world that owns Todd.ai. That's pretty impressive. Pretty excited about that. Yeah. And so, and then we have these mastery labs, which we want people, Chris, to learn how to master a skill before they try to master 5 skills. So we have a menu of these 7-day mastery labs where I teach for 20 minutes and then you jump off. The whole company, we had a company of 100 people the other day, jump off, go practice it with my AI, come back on and tell us your improvement score. And the minimum improvement score that we're seeing is 37% better. The highest one we saw was 82% better after just 20 minutes of role playing. So I just love the idea that now you get to practice in private before you perform in public, and you get to be game ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
role playing is so powerful, and a lot of people don't do it because they don't want to look bad in front of somebody else. So if you can do it now with AI, you're not going to, that takes that piece out of it, right?
Well, and I just want to tell everybody, I'm always positive. And somebody said the other day that he was so afraid of AI. And I go, all you have to think about is AI does not mean artificial intelligence. It means accelerated income. And he looked at me and he goes, why do you always do that? Why do you always find out the positive thing on it? I go, because I've used AI to make hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And save even more. And if you don't like accelerated income, have accelerated impact. If you can make impact faster and get to yes faster, that's a good thing. So the future is build a bigger life in an AI world. And that's what I'm excited about.
Okay. So what's the best way for people to connect with that and find out more and be part of it?
Yeah, I think that you can, you could send them to Lauren.Gregory, LAUREN.Gregory, GREGORY at myfuel, MYFUEL.io. Mm-hmm. And then she'll throw you into the waiting list because Todd AI is launching September 4th. That'd be the best one. And if anybody wants to hit me directly, it's Todd at myfuel.io. We do have a new 4-week thing coming up with me and Coach Michael Burt. It's called High Trust Selling 2.0. You and I were talking about rewriting time traps. High Trust Selling is being rewritten as well. But the 2.0 is out, and the same laws apply, but it's been modernized with our technology and everything. So excited about that.
So you're doing it with Coach Burt. Coach Burt's a buddy. Yeah, so he's a friend of mine. I wrote about him in my book. Actually, I wrote about Coach Burt in my book. So
yeah, he's a very good friend. He's a partner and a great friend. And I was on Whiskey and Wisdom last month with him in Nashville, and that was fun. And I'll tell him you said hi. You can tell him
Please do. Yeah, I will. Yeah, for sure. His energy is second to none. I'm going to see him probably in like 3 weeks. I got a thing I'm doing with John Maxwell down in Franklin, Tennessee, and then I'll go over and see the Greatness Factory one down there.
So you want to hear something about John Maxwell?
I would love to.
So I reached out to Mark Cole, who is the new.
I know Mark.
Yeah,
I know Mark. Yeah,
are good buds, and I said I need to show you something. And being one of John's good friends for 30 years, I know he's all about legacy. He's all about impact, and I have something that I don't think you guys have seen yet, and I want to show it to you. So I showed Mark my AI, just me. And I said, what if we could do something with John where not only did John have that, so that as an 80-year-old thought leader, he's got something now that can continue to broadcast, his messages to the world. And then what if we could take the top 10% of your coaches and build their own AI for their coaching businesses, of which John is part of. And so I showed Mark and he lost his mind. So then Jared and I get on, and the guys in training get on. And they said, well, how fast can you build this? And I go, pretty fast. So this was a Friday. So I said, if you get me 2 soft manuscripts, just pick 2 of John's books and give me the soft manuscript, and give me, 5 to 10 hours of video, overnight it to me. As long as I get it Monday morning by 10 o'clock, John's AI will be built by the end of the day.
Wow.
And Chris, right now, we can build any AI in 60 minutes. That's our technology. It's sick. So anyway, Maxwell's all excited that he gets to have AI technology to keep his voice alive whenever God decides to take him home.
Yeah. So I met John because I sent John one Jordan shoe.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And then John called me and we built this relationship, and he actually wrote a keynote about me called The People Pile, how to get out of the people pile. And it's all about the one Jordan strategy. It's the craziest thing. Like it was so crazy because I didn't know he was going to do that. And people started messaging me on LinkedIn like, hey, I'm at an event and John Maxwell is talking about you. I'm like, oh, come on. He's not talking about me.
That's so
sure enough,
cool.
he was. So yeah, I just saw John a couple weeks ago. He was here in Indianapolis. But John is just one of those guys that I've been able to connect with by doing the one Jordan strategy. And I could text John right now and he'll respond. Like, he's a good dude. And Mark's great too. I love Mark, Alex. I saw both of them just a few weeks ago. But love Mark too. And John has been he's been such an influence on me. And a guy asked me earlier today, he says, actually my personal coach, he's like, what, Chris, you're doing all these things and you're a generalist. Like, what do you really want to be in the coaching space? And I said, John Maxwell. Like, I don't know. You asked me, like, you want to be the best ever, right? So I want to be like a John Maxwell. He goes, well, he's mainly leadership. And I said, yeah. I said, I got a lot of leadership stuff too. I said, but I that's who I look up to, right? That's the guy. So
we all have mentors, and grateful for him. He's got a big heart too. When I first hosted the Maximum Impact simulcast, and those were the days where he was selling the John Maxwell Tape Club, and I've been using it for 3 years. I get on stage and we just crush it. We sold more Tape Club memberships in that one day event than any other event that he's ever had.
Wow.
So I get a call from Linda Eggers. You've met Linda?
I don't think so.
Linda's his assistant of 30 years. And Linda said, hey, Todd, John wanted me to ask you what you were doing next Wednesday. So this is the simulcast ends, and this is less than a week later, right? And I go, well, I'm free. Why? And she goes, grab a ticket, fly to Atlanta. John wants to say thanks for making the simulcast so successful, and he's taking you to the Masters.
Oh, wow.
So I got to hang out with Maxwell in a house at Augusta at the Masters for 4 days. And that's the kind of guy he is. Just crazy. Beautiful.
It is. It is.
Wow.
All right. So Todd, if somebody wants to connect with you, we went through a lot of that a minute ago, but again, what's the best way to get more Todd on a daily basis? Like where can we see Todd at?
So why don't we do this? Why don't you guys all connect with me on LinkedIn? So it's my handle is Todd Duncan Official, or just search my name. Come join me on LinkedIn. Everything I'm doing is being distributed through LinkedIn now. And that's how you can connect with me and get the special messages that we're offering. And everybody needs to see, you're going to go ahead and post that thing about like Coach Bird and myself. And
everything will be there.
4 Fridays in a row, the number one guy on Trust Me and the number one guy in Performance, Coach Michael Burt, we're going to work with you for 4 Fridays in a row. It's going to blow your mind. So that'd be great, Chris, if you could distribute that. But
yeah, I will for sure.
On LinkedIn.
Yep, I will for sure. But I'm a big supporter of both you guys. So, hey, Todd, it's been such a pleasure. I can't wait to share a stage with you in Dallas, Texas here in a couple months, like less than 2 months. Like that's like literally like going to be like the highlight of my speaking career. And I mean, I wrote in a journal in 2006 that I'd be on the stage with you at some point in my career. And 20 years later, we're doing it, Todd.
Here you are.
So
there you are. Yeah. Good. So it was an honor to be with you, brother, and I'm glad that 2006 happened, and glad
me too.
What we did today.
Yeah, me too.